Okay, class. So here we are back with another lecture, and in the previous classes or in the previous lecture that I have got for you people, so over there we learned that the living organisms they were classified, and among that classification we have got five kingdoms. There was a kingdom Animalia, the Plantae, the fungus, the Protoctus, and then we have the bacteria or the prokaryotes with us. And as far as these organisms are concerned, so not all, but most of these living organisms, they are gonna be complex with us. So in today's lecture, we people are gonna be looking that we cannot understand these complex living organisms until or unless we are gonna look on toward their basic unit. And that basic unit that we have got within the living organisms, so they are referred to as the cells, we say, basic unit. As in case of the house, we started to look on toward the bricks and on toward the metal screws and the metallic sheets and some other components in case of the car. So likewise, for the living organisms, if they are gonna be complex, so they would be possessing this small basic unit of life in them, and this is something we call this as a cell, we say. Okay, and again, I'm making it clear that this cell is not something that we have in our remote control, but this is a small basic fundamental unit that we have got in our living bodies. Okay, so you see that whenever this word cell is coming in biology, so there should be this word that should click in your mind, and that word is protoplasm. Okay, like for instance, if I say I was talking about a living organism, so if they have got this basic unit cell in them, so this also has to be living, and that living matter that we have got in our cells, so this is something we say is protoplasm. And protoplasm further comprises of three things in it, that there has to be the presence of cell membrane, there has to be the nucleus in them, and there has to be the cytoplasm in them. If these three things we have got, so ultimately the living matter of the cell would be formed, and this is what we refer to this as a protoplasm, we say. Okay. So before I take you to the further detail that we have got in a cell, now there is a little thing or the concept that you people have to understand, that you see for yourself that okay, fine, we have got our earth or we have got our environment. So the situation with the environment is that there are hundred to thousands of the living organisms that we have. So initially the mankind I'm talking about, so they were not much into be understanding that okay, fine, we have got this living organism and we should be understanding it, or we should at least be bothered about something that we are seeing for the very first time. So the thing it so happened was that when we actually started to be looking on toward the living organism and having such a greater number of the living organisms, it was becoming very difficult for us to be studying them. So here there came a scientist, and the name of the scientist it was Linnaeus. And the Linnaeus, what he actually did, he started to be classifying the living organisms in some particular groups. Okay. Now, what he actually did, that he kind of introduced the kingdom system and the total of the kingdoms that we have got with us. So there are five of the kingdoms that we have. And among those kingdoms, like if I simply talk about them, so we have got the plants, and then what we have got with us, these are the animals, or for other we can also be calling this as an animalia as well. And then we have got these funguses with us. And after the funguses, we have got this fourth thing with us, and that kingdom are the kingdom of the protoctus. Now, what protoctus actually are, we're going to be looking onto them in a while. And then what we have with us are these special kind of the organisms we have, and these are the bacteria. And you must remember that these bacteria, they have got another name for them, and the name that we assign them, so this is prokaryotes with us. Now, since these are all the living organisms we have with us, so this is very evident that they would be possessing some cells in them. So what the scientists they basically did was to see that these plants, animal, funguses, and the protoctus that we have got, they have the cells in them. And these cells that would be present in the first four kingdoms that I have written, so they are the eukaryotic cells with us. And as far as this bacteria is concerned, so it is gonna be possessing a cell in it, and that the name of the cells or the type of the cell that we would have in the bacteria. So as the word is prokaryote, so the cells in them, they are going to be the prokaryotic cells with us. And in this course, we would see about a lot of differences that we are going to look into the eukaryotes and the prokaryotes. But here in this chapter, you people should be very much clear about that, okay, finally, we have got the eukaryotic cells as plants and the animal and the fungi and the protoctist. So we should be clear about their structure. But generally, the cells that would be there in these living organisms, they would be the eukaryotic cells, and within the bacteria, the cell that we people would encounter. So that is going to be a prokaryotic cell. And at the point you just remember is that in these organisms, there would be the genetic material that would be present within the nucleus. The bacteria would be having the genetic material, but it would not be influenced by the nuclear environment. Okay, so initially what we have to be seeing is that, okay, fine, I have said it that if at the moment I am saying that we have got this animal cell and the cell would indicate that, okay, fine, at any cost, this need to be possessing this protoplasm. And in that we would have this, and this, and collectively they would make the living matter, and that is a protoplasm with it. But in the animal cell, not only we have got this nucleus, cytoplasm, and the cell membrane, but at the same time we have got the mitochondria, we have the centrioles, and then there would be some small temporarily existing vacuoles. Now, here let us take a break for a while. That I am saying that in the animal cell there would be some small vacuoles. They are small, they are numerous, and then they would be existing in our cells for short period of time. And then we have got the ribosomes, and the ribosomes sometimes can be associated with some membranes, and these are the membrane of the rough endoplasmic reticulum. So here, if you just clearly see, what I have got here is the part of the protoplasm, and this is a nucleus with us. Okay, and likewise, here we people see the membrane with us that is enclosing the entire animal cell that we have with us. So this membrane that we have got on the outside of the cells or covering the cells. So this is what we would be referring to this as a cell membrane, we say. Okay, and then again, if you see, like here we have got the cell membrane, and here we have got the nucleus. In between the cell membrane and the nucleus, now you see that there is this fluid-filled space that we have. So we call this as a cytoplasm, and as I have already told, that cytoplasm is the further part of the protoplasm. Okay, so this and this cell membrane and the cytoplasm that we have, so they were making the protoplasm. But the thing doesn't end here. Like here I have the nucleus, and when I am coming near to the nucleus, so here we have got another specialized structure. And the structure that we have, so this has got the paired, you would say, things in it, and we would be referring to them as the centrioles. Likewise, in close association with the nuclear membrane, here guys, we have got this membrane with us, and this membrane has got these small spherical ribosomes in it. So overall, this entire structure that we have, so this would be called as a rough endoplasmic reticulum. And at the same point, like these small spherical structures that we have got connected with the membrane of the endoplasmic reticulum, so these are the ribosomes. And due to the presence of the ribosome, these membrane, they do not have some kind of a smooth appearance, but they would have this kind of a rough appearance on it. So that is why we people are overall going to be calling this as a rough endoplasmic reticulum. And whatsoever would be the function of the ribosomes, the same would be the function of this rough endoplasmic reticulum. And then you see that here we have got some other double membrane organelle. Like if you see for this part, so we have got this inner membrane, and then we have got this outer membrane. So this double membrane organelle that appears to look like a sausage-shaped organelle. So this is the mitochondria with us. Okay, and now moving onward, as I've said, that in the cytoplasm there would be some small temporarily existing vacuoles. Okay, now why I am saying small, I'm saying numerous, and the temporarily existing vacuoles, but when we people would be discussing about the plant cells over there, we would see that we have got no numerous, no temporarily existing vacuoles, no small vacuoles, but rather than in the plant cell, there is gonna be large permanent vacuole. That is not the situation here in case of the animal cell that we have got. Okay. So this is the overall structure that we have got for the animal cell. Now, proceeding further, here you see that this cell membrane that we have, so overall we call this as selectively, or we call this as a partially permeable membrane. Okay, selectively or partially permeable membrane means that this would be controlling that what gets an entry into the cell or what is gonna exit out of the cell. Now, this is something very important because if I just draw it for you, like if I had got this animal cell with me, and if there were to be the entry of the water molecule, the cell membrane is gonna allow it. If there is some ion that wants to enter into the cell, so the cell membrane is going to allow it. And as I told you earlier in the definition of the respiration, that okay, fine, if we have got the sausage-shaped mitochondria with us, so there has to be the necessity of the two things. One is the glucose that we have, and the other thing that we have got is the oxygen gas with us. So if these both guys, the glucose and the oxygen, if they have to be coming toward the cell membrane saying that hey cell membrane we want to enter, so the cell membrane is going to allow it. Okay, fine, because if you would not be going toward the mitochondria, we would not be able to release the energy out of it, so they would be allowed. But if I were to say that mistakenly some person has eaten up some contaminated food, and in that contaminated food, if there were supposed to be the presence of some disease causing organism, to what we call this as a pathogen, so if the pathogen was gonna come near to the cell membrane, so the cell membrane would say that okay, no, you are something not useful for us, you are something harmful for us, so the cell membrane is not gonna allow that. Okay, so this is the reason that we call the cell membrane as selectively or the partially permeable membrane. The reason is that they would allow some particles to move into, some particles to move out of the cells. Not all the particles would be allowed. So now we are very much clear about the function, that the function of the cell membrane would be to be controlling the entry and the exit of the substances. Only the useful would be allowed and the harmful would not be allowed. Okay. No, we are done with the cell membrane that we have. Okay. Now, as like I at the moment am discussing those part of the cell that was making the protoplasm, and so far we have looked on toward the cell membrane. Now here come this guy, which is the cytoplasm with us. Okay. So if you see, what you're gonna remember is that okay, if we have this nucleus, and every people have got the cell membrane with us. So between the nucleus and the cell membrane, this fluid filled space that we have got at this point, guys. So this is the cytoplasm. And what the cytoplasm is, this is a fluid filled space, like whether this is gonna have some liquid or semi-solid kind of the consistency. And where this is located, this is present between the cell membrane and the nucleus. And the role which the cytoplasm is gonna perform, like this is the site of the most of the chemical reaction. Okay, now why I'm saying the site of most chemical reactions, because some chemical reactions are going to take place within the nucleus, some would take place within the centriole, some would take place here in the ribosomes. Okay, the ribosomes, as I said, that they would be present on the rough endoplasmic reticulum, but some ribosomes can also be present freely within the cytoplasm. So you see from this we are getting an idea that when most of the chemical reactions, they are going to be taking place into the cytoplasm, and this is something you just need to know for your IGCSE course. Okay. Now, at the moment, why I'm not discussing the nucleus, we'll be coming toward it because there are some important fundamental concepts that we have to be getting, that what the nucleus is actually doing. But here you see that close to the nucleus, as I mentioned earlier, that there would be the availability of structures, centrioles, and they are the paired structure. And if we just try to look on toward the angle which they have in them, so usually roughly we say that they are inclined at an angle of 90 degree. Okay. Earlier, when we people were discussing about the basic characteristics of the living organisms, so over there we said that whenever the growth of an organism is taking place, so there would be permanent increase in the size of an organism. And that permanent increase in the size of an organism is due to an increase in the number of the cells and an increase in the size of the cells. So you see that here I have got this parent cell, and this parent cell at some point it decides to be making two further cells out of it. Okay, so this is equivalent to something we refer in biology to be cell doing the cell division. So ultimately, when the cell division has to happen, where a parent cell would be dividing into two new cells or into two daughter cells, so the role would be contributed by the centrioles. Now, how that is actually done, so you people are gonna learn in your A levels biology, but at this point, the only thing that you should know is that they have got a role or a contribution in the cell division because we need to be increasing the number of cells. When we would increase them up, so the living organism is gonna get a permanent growth or its size is gonna increase. Okay. No, we must not be forgetting about this organelle that we have with us, and this is mitochondria. Now, the first thing that you should remember is that this appears to be sometimes sausage shaped, or they could be flat shaped, and they have got this inner membrane and they have got this outer membrane. So, overall, I would say that this is a double membrane organelle. Usually, they are sausage shaped, and this is important from the paper point of view because examiner is clearly going to ask you that what the mitochondria are doing. So these mitochondria they carry out a chemical process, and that chemical process is what we call this as respiration process. Okay, what respiration process is that this is not some physical process but a chemical reaction. And in that chemical reaction, what you people need to remember is that we are gonna be providing some raw materials to these mitochondria, and among them we have got the glucose coming, and then along with the glucose there would be coming up of the oxygen gas, and when they both would combine, so as a result of that people are gonna be releasing the gas out of it, and that gas usually that we exhale out, that would be the carbon dioxide gas. Along with that there would be the water coming out, and then the energy would be produced in the form of ATP. Now the word ATP is adenosine triphosphate. Like if I were to say that there is some work has to be done in the nucleus, some work has to be done in the centrioles, and the energy is required. So the mitochondria is going to send the energy to that particular area where there is need of releasing the energy for some particular work. So the ATP is going to send toward that. And this is again an obligation of an examiner that the students of the IGCSEs they must know that okay, fine, if respiration process is going to happen, then how come you're going to be writing the word equation and the chemical equation? So this is the word equation that I have written for you guys. And if I were to be writing the chemical equation, so how that would go? Like we have got the glucose with us, and add this would be C6H12 and O6 plus. We are going to combine them with 6 molecules of the oxygen gas, and as a result of that there would be formation of 6 molecules. Like if people would be studying chemistry as well, like wherever we have got the group of an atom, so that is going to make a molecule out of it. And 6 means that we have got formation of 6 molecules of carbon dioxide gas, and there would be 6 molecules of the water being released, and then the energy would be formed in the form of ATP. Like it's your choice whether you add up this ATP word or you don't add up in a chemical equation for the respiration. So this is not going to make any difference. Okay. So now here if we just simply see, so I were again emphasizing on the vacuoles that whenever we have got this animal cell with us, so there are going to be small, numerous, temporarily existing vacuoles with us, and what function they are going to be performing is that some food particles, if the cell has got in it, so they could be stored in these small vacuoles, and the cell and whenever this is going to carry out some chemical reaction, some waste materials would be produced, and these waste materials they are going to be stored within these small vacuoles that we have got with us. Okay. Now, we people are gonna be looking firstly to be understanding the how come the structure of the nucleus is, what we have got in it, and the teachers keeps on saying that the nucleus controls all the activities of the cells, and we are gonna justify that how come this nucleus would be controlling all the activities of the cells that we have with us. Okay, so I'm gonna come here and I'm gonna tell you guys that what you people need to know in terms of the nucleus. I'm discussing it at the very last so that your concept should be clear. So here you see I made the cell, and then within the cell here you see that I made this nucleus. So what I'm gonna do that I'm gonna take this nucleus out, and when we will take this nucleus out, then we people are gonna see that what things we have or what components we have got in this nucleus. Okay, so whatsoever I'm gonna draw now, so that would not be an animal cell, but that is gonna be the nucleus. So here you see that when I am making this nucleus for you, so in the nucleus we have got this membrane with us, and this membrane of the nucleus is the nuclear membrane. Okay, like the cell has got the cell membrane, and the nucleus that we have got has got its own membrane, and that membrane is the nuclear membrane. And in some points you would also learn it in the form of the nuclear envelope. As in the cell, we have got this fluid-filled space, which we were referring to this as a cytoplasm. So likewise, within the nucleus, we have got this fluid-filled space here in the nucleus. It would not be cytoplasm, but rather than it would be termed as a nucleoplasm. And then again, within this nucleus, we have got this denser protoplasmic mass. And this denser protoplasmic mass is referred to as the nucleolus. Okay, so this is something that we have in the nucleus. But most important thing that we have to be understanding here in case of the nucleus is that it carries some genetic information in it. And that genetic information is basically present within the structures. And these structures, they're going to look like this. Okay, so they are chromosomes actually. And in these chromosomes, what we have got in them is this genetic material. And this genetic material basically is the DNA that I showed you people over here. Okay, so if I were to say that the nucleus is going to control all the activities of the cells, so this means that it needs to have some instructions in them. Like for the moment, if I say you people are living in the home and your mother is controlling the activities, then she might be controlling it with the instruction she would give. Like she would say, do this, do that. So if I were to say that the nucleus is controlling all the activities of the cells, then we should know that how. Okay, the thing that might come in your mind is that maybe the nucleus may be speaking to the mitochondria that, hey, mitochondria, you do this for me. Hey, centriole, you do this for me. So this is actually not happening. We don't hear any voices coming out of our body because if the nucleus has to be controlling the activity, so it's genetic material that I'm referring to this as a DNA. So this does not speak, but rather than this do something else. Okay, so the first thing that you have to clear in your mind is that the nucleus is able to control all the activities of the cells due to the presence of this DNA in them. And from where has this DNA come? This has come from our parents, and that is why we call this as a heredity material because half the information was sent from our father, half was sent from our mother, and we have used that information to be making our body, to be making our organs, and each and every activity that at the moment is going on in your body. So thanks partly to this genetic information that we have got in the DNA. Okay, now the situation is that, okay, fine, how come this nucleus would be able to control the activities of the cells? So the simple thing is that this DNA that you people have, so this has got some information in it, and that information is the genetic information, or another word we call this as heredity information. Why we are calling this as an heredity information? Because this is something that we have got from our parents. Now the thing would be that how come this DNA would be utilized to be controlling the activities? So the simple thing is that this DNA would be sending some instructions for making up of some biological molecules, and these biological molecules are protein. In your junior classes you may have learned about some words like enzymes. In the COVID, you people may have heard about the word, and that word was antibodies. Likewise, the people, those who are suffering from the diabetes, so they inject themselves with the insulin. So these are the proteins, even your hairs, your fingernails, and the walls of the blood vessels, and the red blood cells that we have. So all of them, they are the proteins. And whenever we have to be making the proteins in a cell, so we require that DNA or the genetic information out of here. If I be very precise here, so let me quote you something from your daily life. That how come, and that would clear your concept. that how come the DNA is gonna be making the proteins out of it. If I were to say that there is this room, and in this room you people have got your mother, and on the other way around at some distant part in your home you have got this thing, and this is your kitchen. Now by some mean or the other your mother was not able to get out of the room, neither you were supposed to be leaving the kitchen, and there was one rough day and there was a responsibility on you that you have to be making some dish or some food out of it. Now most of the time you people don't know the recipe is there with your mother. And if your mother was gonna be sending the instructions of the recipe to you that add this ingredient and that ingredient, then by doing that, you people would be ending up making some dish. Okay. So likewise, if I were to be making a protein in the cells, so the situation is that again here you see we have got the cell membrane, and at the center, again what we have got here is the nucleus. And a little while ago, we made these rough endoplasmic reticulum membrane, and over there we had got these ribosomes with us. The cell wanted to produce some enzyme for some chemical reaction, and the DNA is responsible for that. So what the DNA is going to do, that it would copy the instructions as your mother sent you the recipe. So the DNA is gonna send the information to these ribosomes that we have, and that information in the DNA would be converted into another information kind of a thing, and this is messenger RNA. The messenger RNA is going to leave the nucleus and then it would insert itself into the ribosomes. Now, as you were making the dish and you required some ingredients for this, and if you were to be making some protein on these ribosomes and the recipe has come or the instructions from the DNA has come, then the thing would be that now, what else do we need to do? So you have got the instructions coming from the DNA, those got copied onto the messenger RNA. From the messenger RNA, the information has arrived here onto the ribosomes. Now, what the ribosome they are going to do, that by reading the instructions on the messenger RNA, they would start to be linking some units, they are the amino acids with us. And these amino acids, they would be combined with one another. And when they are gonna combine with one another, so they would lead toward the formation of some chains. And these chains that we have got, they are the polypeptide chains. These polypeptide chains further would be making up the protein, and that protein could be enzyme. And that enzyme is gonna be controlling the activities of the cells. So what I have to be teaching you people is that the DNA is controlling the activities of the cells not directly, but rather than causing the ribosomes to be making the proteins, and those proteins indirectly would be controlling or doing all the activities that are required for the cells to be performing perfectly. So now, since we have got the idea of the nucleus and I have associated it with the ribosomes, so for the ribosomes, what you need to have in your mind is that these ribosomes, they read the instructions that come from the DNA and then they combine the amino acids together, and as a result of that, we people are gonna be making the proteins out of it.